Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17th shard series where we reread the Cosmere and are giant nerds about it. Today, we are talking about the Well of Ascension. Joining me is Jessie.
Hello, I am Lady Lameness.
Ian.
Hey, I'm your writer.
Matt.
I'm Comatose on the forums and Discord.
Kadie.
Hello, I'm Aon Ene on the forums and Discord.
Eric.
I'm Chaos.
And I am Michelle, or firstRainbowRose. This episode will have spoilers for this book and Final Empire only. In this episode, we are talking about characters and relationships. Who wants to start us off?
So, this book focuses a lot on Vin and Elend's relationship and the fact that Vin is incredibly insecure in who she is and where she stands with her fiance, future husband. And Elend's like trying to deal with so many things at once. And it's so obvious they're teenagers because they just don't understand how to have a conversation together. And it drove me mental. It was to the point where this read through, it actually got a bit too much for me. And the scene where they're both going to Cazed one after the other, it was unenjoyable at that point. I'm like, it makes sense. I understand in world why it is like this, but good God, just have these words to each other. Stop having an intermediate. Just talk to each other, God damn it.
I do remember doing that, though, as a teenager, having a crush on somebody and
Elend is not a teenager. Like, he's in his 20s.
Yeah.
Like, he was 21 in Final Empire.
But
21 isn't that far removed.
Yeah, but like in this book, he's 22, 23. I'm just like...
But he's also an unexperienced 22, 23-year-old.
Yeah.
And he has so much else going on with his life that it makes sense to me that his habit is go to other people when I have a problem. Because he doesn't... Although towards the end, it does kind of annoy me because it's like... He's grown so much as a character and become so self-reliant as a character that by the end, it would make much more sense for him to sit down and go, okay, Vin, we need to have a conversation. Let's talk.
The way I remember it, right, in this, like, that scene with Cazed and both of them, that's like part 4. So we're getting very close to the part where Vin's just gonna murder everyone at Keep Hasting, and then they get married, which is, I forgot how entertaining that was, that it's just like, Vin's like, I'm ready, I've made the decision, I am bloodied right now, but like, let's go right now.
No, they get married after she fights Zane.
Yeah, Zane nearly kills her.
Zane fight. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's a little later in part 4.
Because when the Zane fight happens, because Zane is like, she's like, oh, I'm going to run away with Zane and solve Elend's problem. And then Zane, like, she reaches for something and Zane, like, jumps. And then she's like, oh, good, he has good instincts. Like, he's like me. But then she's like, but Elend wouldn't have flinched.
Which, like, it's that gets foreshadowed. Going back to foreshadowing being amazing in this book, like, she tests Zane, like, early book, like, she drops a coin and, like, he turns around and jumps because, like, he's acting like he trusts her, but, like, as soon as she does that, it's like, no, he doesn't trust me.
But Ellen,
and yet she still wants to run away with him.
He's staring out over the rooftops, and then she drops it.
I just love Sasset's line of, like, to Vin, you should rest tonight, despite the recent change in your relationship. When they get married, I'm just like, oh.
Brandon has said that if you're watching for it, Vin and Elend are supposed to be having sex during this book. I don't know about that because I actually was watching for it. Because, like, there are scenes where if you know what you're watching for, David and what's her face are seriously having sex in
in Reckoners.
In Reckoners, yeah. So. I don't know. I think that's Brandon trying to unclean his book after the fact.
I got the sense that they were, like, spending the nights together when they were sleeping. Which you can sleep in the same bed and not be having sex, but maybe that's...
I assume they did sometimes.
Yeah.
See, I didn't get that impression much.
Definitely in the tent, though. Like,
definitely in the tent.
Definitely in the tent. But Ellen is so awkward around Vin. Anytime she starts to undress or like she's exposed due to the surgery and stuff, he's so awkward around her that it's like, are you sure that they are supposed to be shagging before this? Because he's a little bit too shy for somebody who's supposed to be shagging her.
Reading this book, I have decided that I do not at all see a love triangle in this book. Yeah. What I see is Vin being very insecure and Zane being the means to an end to try and avoid what's going on with Eland. So I think that she never wanted to run away with Zane. She just wanted to run away from her problems. And Zane happened to be there as an excuse.
It is like, and because like he's Ellen's brother, it's like he's kind of like Ellen. Like I might be happy with him.
Like she's trying to talk herself into it, but what she's actually just mainly trying to do is run away from her problems to begin with.
Exactly.
Run away from what she perceives to be her less of her problems and more of the problem that she is seeing, because
more her insecurities. Like she just doesn't know how to deal with them. So I know that people talk about like how the love triangle in this is really bad. I don't even think there's a love triangle in this. I can't even consider that anymore.
Like Zane likes Vin, but a lot of that is because he's hearing the whispers. It's like, oh, I don't hear that kill you, and I thought you'd save me in that last conflict. Oh, it is.
Oh, I love that.
It's so good.
Yeah, Zane's totally her getaway car. I've always liked that interpretation.
I think Brennan has part of the reason like he added Zane in is because Zane kind of represents that like that the not darkness, but like that avenue Vin could go that Kelsier kind of represented, but because that Vin didn't really get to explore because Kelsier was a father figure. He also died. So it helps Vin realize like, no, she doesn't want to go down the same path that Kelsier would. Like,
I also really loved the moment when Vin sees Zane's scars and like they're self-harm scars, right? But she assumes because she is drawing these parallels to Kelsier that it's like, are those like, pits of Hathsin scars?
I was convinced that they were the first time. Like I actually got really confused later on. I was like, but he was at the pits of Hathsin. Like, why is this never brought up?
Right.
Yeah, but it's I think we had gotten a scene earlier of him, them being self-inflicted.
Yeah,
but if like you don't remember,
So I actually find this all very funny because I agree with you guys that that's what's appealing to Vin about Zane, and I agree that that's probably what's behind it. But I find this very funny because I specifically made a note when I was reading this that that Vin and Zane didn't actually look as horrible as we all kind of memed and like is accepted knowledge. Like I was rereading it and instead of going, Vin, how could you? I don't understand this. I was like, oh, I see where she's coming from in this. Like I don't think there's chemistry between them. I like to joke that the ship name for Vin and Zane is Inane.
I like that.
That's great.
I like that.
That's solid.
Glad you guys like that one. So like I can when I'm reading their POVs, I can see how Zane is interested in Vin, and I can see how Vin is how she's rationalizing it to herself and how it doesn't seem like a rationalization at all. I do think that's the driving force behind it and all of what you guys said. But I can definitely see how if you're not aware of these kinds of things and if you're so frightened and confused about your significant other in this way, because I'm 19 and I've dated people, and teenagers dating people, we're stupid. We're kind of stupid. We don't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We all were. We all remember.
Yeah.
Being dumb. So.
Yep.
But
yeah, and so yeah, I see it and I understand it, I think, and I made a note to myself that it's really not as crazy kind of as I think it's sometimes simplified down to, as just like, this is the stupid love triangle, which, yeah, love triangle isn't a great word for it because it wasn't really a triangle there. But I see what I think. I'm going to give Brandon the credit where I think he wrote that all right. Like,
yeah,
it seems realistic.
Vin is just terrible at feeling love.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right. And that's
experience.
what she needs to grow and like
Yeah.
realize that she does deserve it.
Yeah.
Well, and I even just, I was thinking, comparing, because I'm always like, by the end of the series, Vin and Ellen, everybody knows I hate their relationship in the first book, and I feel like it's super ridiculous. But by the end of the series, I'm always like, okay, yeah, they're cute. But rereading even this book, it's like, girl, you maybe love him, but you certainly don't know how to show it. And I've just come to the conclusion that Vin is terrible at love. But, I mean, it makes sense for her character. I mean, her experiences of love are her brother telling her, you're useless, nobody will ever love you. But
she is a highly traumatized individual.
Yeah.
And like, this book just goes to show that, like, you need more than like love and attraction for a relationship to work. Like, you need to put effort in. Like, you need to communicate. That's the lesson they learn in this book.
Yes,
they learn to communicate.
They do need to communicate,
because it's the scene where like the Alamancers attack the assembly meeting where what's happening, and Vin explodes a guy's head with her head, and it's like, Vin, I mean, Elen is justifiably horrified about what he just witnessed, and like Vin is like, oh no, like he thinks I'm a monster, like. This is the end of our relationship.
Like, that's not what's happening here.
Whereas, like, no, you just exploded a guy's head. Like,
give him a moment.
He's reacting to like he still loves you, and then because of that, like she starts pulling back, and Elen is like, oh, like she doesn't like I lost. I'm no longer king. It's like I've disappointed her. She no longer wants to be in a relationship with me. So it's like they're both misinterpreting the other.
Yeah.
It's like But by the end, it's like they do communicate, and it's like, yes.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
I love the line where Tyndall's just like, wow, I would really appreciate if the world wasn't resting on a teenage
shoulders
girl.
of a teenage girl. Yeah. And Seiza, it's like, no, it's not that bad. I have had daughters. That is a teenage girl. This is bad. This is bad.
I also like the line of like where Tynwell is talking, I think, to Ellen, and like Ellen says like, oh, Vin's not like other women, and Tynwell's like, yo, that applies to literally every woman. Like, like she's relatively normal for like her life experiences. Like,
I love Tynwell. Like, sorry, but she brings so. We're gonna go shopping now. What? Like, I just love the dynamic that she brings to everybody of just, nope, we're doing this.
He's a great character.
Yeah, Tynwell is one of my favorite characters in the Mistborn series for similar reasons to why Navani is one of my favorite Stormlight characters. It's like, she's just amazing, and I love her.
Yeah, before we get into Tynwell, who I also love, to Ian's point, or Kadie's point, I remember the first time I read this book, I was very anti Vin and Eland because I was very like, he's her first boyfriend. They shouldn't end up together. Like, they need to break up and move on to other relationships. So I was very like, not like being like, oh, Vin and Zane love each other, but I was like, oh no, but like Vin does need to run away with Zane so she can like, experience
see the world.
Yeah, other people. And I think part of that was the stage in life I was at the time I was reading it for the first time in high school. But it is interesting because you do see like they're similar. Like Vin identifies a lot of similarities between them, and I think she's also struggling between her practical side, which is Zane and I make sense on paper, and so we should be together, rather than Elend I feel things for, but I'm not comfortable with those feelings. And that's why I really like how Brandon sets up the relationship conflict in this book with the denied proposal. I thought reading it through this time, I was like, oh yeah, Elend asks her to marry him in the time jump, and she turns him down, and then it's like this. And so it also kind of then makes sense why they're having some of these communication issues, because they have this kind of unspoken, unresolved thing. Because I don't think Vin ever really explained why she said no. And so they're left kind of in this, like, we're still together. We don't really understand where the relationship is headed. And we're kind of walking on eggshells around each other a little bit, because this is really important to both of us and we don't want to jinx it. But we're feeling really fragile right now. And I think that was a really effective way for Brandon to do that. When it's like, okay, they've been together for over a year. How do we make their relationship still have some conflict and maybe be in these situations where we're not communicating super well? And I did like that setup.
Yeah. No, it was very good in that sense. I want to talk a bit about Zane because that's all related in this. And so Zane was a lot less bad than I remembered. For the record, I still think The Watcher is a stupid name, and I still think it would have been better in Final Empire if Zane was more strongly set up. Because like you're like just getting, oh, here's a book 2 villain. Whereas I feel like at the end of Well of Ascension, they're kind of setting up what's happening in book 3, like pretty well. Like, oh, we're gonna go to Fadrex, right? But with Zane, like it would have been nice to have a little bit more there, so it's not just like, whoa, this person's crazy. And I feel like if Brandon just toned down the edginess, like just a bit lower. Like, does he need to dress in all black? Does he need to do that? Because it just feels like it's like, I'm dressing in all black, and the first thing I'm gonna say to you is, I'm insane. Like, oh my god. Like, it's...
To be fair, you've known those teenagers. You have known those teenagers who are those edgelords that are...
How old is he?
He's only like a year younger than Elend. So like he's also early 20s.
Early 20s. So.
Yeah, but I've known... Okay, let's be realistic here. I was one of those people who my quirkiness, shall we politely put it to myself, lingered much longer than it should have. To be fair, I also have other issues, but so does
Brandon
he.
Could have write it better, right? Like Brandon could write it a bit more subtly and a bit less over the top, because like once we get past that and like we actually get into the actual conflicts, then it's actually pretty good. But it's just, Brandon just smacks you in the head. It's like, I am Edgelord Eddington III. And I'm just like, I am just 11 out of 10 edgelordiness. I'm like, I just wish it was like an 8. Just like for a bit. So it wasn't just like, do we really need to have him all in black to just be that edgy? Like,
but that's standard Mistborn. That's standard Mistborn garb. Like Vin
does that when he's a messenger, Matt. There's no excuse. He doesn't need to wear that. Like I just think it could have been done a bit more subtly, and more compelling. But I do really like Zane and Vin's final confrontation especially, connected with Tensoon. It's so good when they finally come to blows and he's just like completely losing it. It's like, you were supposed to save me. I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, and I love the reflection of, he grew up around an angry father who blames others for his problems. And then you have that with the character being an angry character blaming others for their problems. Like, it's a great real world representation of abuse.
Yeah, I just think it, like, either you don't have him dress in black all the time, or maybe just don't have Zane's, like, once we learn his name, so that he doesn't say, I'm insane, like, just a little bit, and then it would be much more plausible and not just like, this character's stupid.
I think you're being too hard on him for wearing black all the time, because I'm pretty sure Vin wears black for like almost all of this book, except when she's in a dress.
Constantly mentioned that Zane is wearing black, Well,
also, like, I don't think she wears black all the time, because like most of the times, like, she's wearing a buttoning shirt, and I don't think that's black. True. I'm pretty sure.
Fair enough.
It's like gray, right?
Yeah. I don't think this.
Say no more black or gray for you. You're getting something different.
Yeah, she does say that. But
I just think the character introduction could have been better, and that would have helped a lot, because there is useful things about it, and this is a big change of opinion of mine, for those of you who know about Zane. Like, he's much less bad than I remembered, but
I think Vin tends to wear just scar garb, which happens to have be a lot of darker colors because of the ash, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I always got the sense that Zane is dressing in almost an impeccable nobleman's black suit or something. Like something that's just a little bit too much, and he's deliberately gone for the color midnight black or something. Compared to her just wearing everyday clothes.
I know this isn't real because it's anachronistic, but in my head, I definitely picture him in a turtleneck.
Archer, is it black or
black.
is it deeper black? Sorry,
black turtleneck. That's how I picture him.
Sure.
Jewelry thief.
Yep. I still don't think the name Zane fits well for Final Empire, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
But much less bad than I remember.
Yeah. I also really love that Tensoon constantly is you shouldn't trust that man, mistress. It's he is trying so hard to turn her away from him. Yep. Probably as much as he can, while
honoring
probably because Zane didn't think to specifically command him not to.
Yeah.
He's doing everything within the contract to I do not trust him. There is something wrong with that man.
Yeah. Oh, it's good.
And sadly, it doesn't work, but
and he can probably justify it as, I'm playing Orsur, and if Vin's Contra saw this whack job, he would be counseling her not to trust him. So as I'm playing my part, I pretty much have to warn her about this concerning individual.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up, even though it doesn't, is I loved talking about relationships, Vin and Kelsier's relationship, and I love the fact that Brandon addresses the whole, didn't you have a crush on Kelsey? Vin's dude, he's old. He was my dad's age. I love that scene because
it's good.
There are so many people who are no, Vin should have ended up with Kelsier. And she's like, dude, that's disturbing and wrong.
I liked in the opening part, even when the crew's gathering, because I think, were you talking about when Breeze is teasing her about it?
Yeah.
Even before Breeze gets there, in the opening part, they have kind of a conversation where it's kind of beginning to touch on Vin Kelsier in a potentially romantic way. And then all of a sudden Vin is just and Eland is okay, we're not teasing her about this anymore. This is a no fly zone.
Nope.
Change of topic.
Yep.
Because that was put in, correct me if I'm wrong, because like when Brandon was first working on the Final Empire, a lot of like the early readers were very like, oh yeah, Kelsey and Vin, right? And he had to change it to have a more father-daughter dynamic because so many people were going down the romantic route, and this was kind of a callback to make fun of that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I hadn't heard anything about that, but
I feel like that's accurate, I think.
Mhm.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like main male lead, main female lead,
Right.
assume romantic connection, which we're conditioned to do, unfortunately.
Usually they are.
And then we get that in this book.
So one of the, like, kind of speaking about Zane, one of the things I found really interesting about Elend's arc in this is Brandon's use of foils. Because Brandon uses character foils a lot, but in this book, they're basically all for Elend. Like, he has a foil in Straff, because he's like the father that he's always comparing himself to, right? You have the foil in Jace, who is, the other academic who is the failed king that Elend kind of fears he could become. And then you have the foil in Zane as well, for like Vin's part. Like, Zane is the son who Straff values and finds useful. So it's interesting how much Brandon really, and part of it I think is Elend's not a huge character in the Final Empire, and he's kind of stepping into Kelsier's shoes.
Yeah,
but I do find it interesting the amount of foils and comparisons he has going on, in addition to having like this main relationship plot and this kind of coming of age and coming into his own story. Brandon really wanted to focus on Elend this book, and I noticed that a lot more on this reread.
He has a lot to do.
Yeah. Like, I'd say I always think of Vin as the main character because she's the main character of the trilogy. But if I was just reading this book in isolation, I think Elend is kind of the main character of this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought up Jace, because that reminds me of something, another bit of possibly foreshadowing, which is Jace's story ends in this book with Elend beheading him.
Yes.
Oh, that line is so good. I forgive you, but my kingdom cannot.
yes.
Oh,
but
so good.
In chapter 28 of the Final Empire, like, Elend and Vin are having conversation about the Scar Rebellion, and it's like Elend has the line, "I'm pretty certain, however, that beheading people won't solve anything." So it's just the character growth. It's like, sometimes beheading is what needs to happen.
Sometimes hitting some things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you gotta cleave a guy off a horse. Just cleave him in half. Sometimes that's what you gotta do.
That's so genius.
Yeah, it's one of the things I caught during my Final Empire reread, knowing what was going to happen with Jason. Like, going to file away that one for later.
That's brilliant.
But to shift gears to a completely different relationship, Breeze and Aon, both phenomenal characters in this book. I really like them both in this book.
I
like them. I still find Alarion a bit superfluous in this book. Like, she doesn't need to be in this book.
But
you can cut her in, that wouldn't change that much of the story.
Oh,
but I still like her. But
talking to Matt's point about foils, she's a foil to Vin.
Yeah.
She is Vin's. She forces Vin to face her femininity. She forces Vin to like look at the feminine side and go, "She's so annoying, but I kind of want to be like her."
She's very. I think that's your focus on plot over character, Eric.
That's probably true.
Alarion serves a very important role for Vin's character arc. I agree. She's not super plot relevant. Other than she stops Set from attacking. Maybe it's never really clear.
She kind of drives like the second half though, because she drives Breeze to taking action. She drives Set to taking like she actually in the background drives quite a bit of the action of the characters aside from Vin.
Yeah, I think it's the fact once we get into her POV, like her character changes drastically. Because in her POV, you realize like she's not the pretty pink puffball she wants everybody to think she is. Like she's stone cold. Like she like is a skilled political.
She's the type of politics I love.
Yeah, because like she's the reason Set is here. Like she brought Set there. She's the one that obviously like convinced Set to like let's go back. Like we're gonna help Luthadel. And it's another like you can be feminine and still be a stone cold killer. And like she's also like is a good fit for Breeze. Like they're both emotional out.
Good.
Yeah.
Right? Like I believe their relationship more than I believe Vin and Ellen's relationship, and well, by way of like you see so little of them by the time they hook up. I believe Breeze and her more than.
See, I always liked Vin and Ellen, like since book one, easy peasy. That was me. But like I do. It is somewhat gross, but I love how Ham was just like making fun of Breeze. Oh, did you get with Seth's daughter?
And then come to find out.
Wait, like, I didn't mean it quite like this. I thought that was a joke.
Yeah.
and it's all Breeze is trying to avoid doing that, and Alrian's like, oh yeah, no, let's seduce him. Let's go.
She reminds me a lot of the girl from the first book that
Cliff.
Yes.
The informant?
No, the antagonist.
Oh, Sean.
Yeah, she reminds me of Sean, except what it would be like to have someone who has that ruthless political thinking on your side.
Sure, right. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the scene where she's like, Daddy, if you want to save me, you're going to have to come get me.
Yeah.
And like the fact that she pauses, is like she's like, is he following me yet?
That's an interesting comparison, actually, her to Sean, because I think the main difference is that their face is different. I think Alrian likes to be underestimated, because that's why she like kind of plays the dits up a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas Shan likes to be seen as competent and in control at all times. And what's in the last book, I remember Vin makes a comparison between Shan and Cayman of the person who will strike you and just expect you not to fight back. And I think Shan actually has a lot in commonalities also with Straff in this book, which makes the whole Elend setup with Shan interesting because he's kind of dating the female version of his father a little bit.
I mean, there is the cliche that women date their father and men date their mother, but it also makes a lot of sense that Straff, I get the feeling that was more of an arranged thing.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense that Straff would try and set Elend up with somebody like himself.
Yeah. He would see strength in someone like Shan.
Yeah. Though it lends an interesting perspective because Brennan wrote a treatment for Final Empire as a movie. And one of the changes he made was instead of Sean being Ellen's fiance, Sean is Ellen's sister.
Oh,
so it's like, it's like she would just take after her dad.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You can totally see why. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So another relationship that we want to talk about is Sazed and Marsh, which I just noted down in my notes as talk about Sazed and Marsh sobs.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
To lead into this, Marsh in this book is like obviously something is going on with him, but you don't know what, and it just kind of hurts to see. And you read lines like Sazed saying, I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was like other people didn't include Marsh anymore. They were scared of him because he was an Inquisitor, so Sazed specifically made an effort to hang out with him and just do things like that. And they clearly had something, like an established... They talked, at least. And I think that's really good. And
I really like how Brandon used Marsh's absence in this book, because he's pretty notably not there. He shows up at the beginning with Sazed, and they, we have to go to the conventicle, and they go and they do that. And also the conventicle of Saren is a location we never get to go back to, really, but is like,
what's really Marsh going for there? No clue. No idea. Never touched on again.
And then to have Marsh just be gone for the rest of the book until the end, when Sazed is going to try to stop Vin, and Marsh is there, like the wham of like, oh no, it's Marsh.
Well, and you can tell that there's something wrong. Like, it's especially when we've just had that betrayal by Tensoon, having Marsh show up and have something clearly wrong, your heart just like drops and you're like, oh no.
I don't know why I have to kill you or whatever. He's like, it's just like,
I now have a theory on why Marsh had to go to the conventicle of Saren. I think he doesn't know why. Like, he's just being forced to go there and to bring Sazed so Sazed can find the plate. So he can just... Because if Vin never would have really found the well or thinks she's the Hero of Ages.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Because she isn't aware of the rubbing. She starts off thinking about the logbook and starts to wonder about herself being the Hero of Ages through the logbook.
Okay. I agree that Ruin wanted the plate out there.
I agree.
In a form that wasn't the plate, so he could manipulate it.
Yeah. It's like, it says that we gotta go now. Like, maybe that's why Marsh was doing that, right?
Yeah,
like,
I think that's a reasonable theory.
Yeah, oh no, I love that theory.
Marsh did say he was looking for something and that he didn't find it as well.
That's true.
That's true.
He was looking for, why am I here? I'm looking for the reason why I feel compelled to come here.
Also, just like, where are the other Inquisitors? I think that was like part of why he said he wanted to go there, because they all just disappeared. He's like, where did they go?
Apparently we're murdering people in Tavingdwyn, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, oof. But poor Marsh.
Which is really interesting, actually. I just realized this because I reread the beginning so recently. When Doxson comes back at the beginning, he says he's coming back from Terrace. So, like, Doxson would have been there kind of like relatively soon before
the Inquisitors showed up.
The Inquisitors showed up. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
I will say that's what is another one of my disappointments. Like, Doxson really is absent from the book. He's there, but like, he's not as present in the narrative as he was in Final Empire, partially because Kelsier's not there. Like, Doxson was really a character that interacted more with Kelsier than with Vin. So it's sad that of the members of the crew, is like he kind of fell by the wayside.
And his death, I love it. His death scene is probably one of my favorite character death scenes, as he's like, yep, here comes the Colossus. Dang you, Kelsier. And he's like watching people die, and he's just like, okay, whatever. This is happening.
See, I actually am completely fine with the fact that he was not in the book very much, because every time I get to the end of this book and his death scene, I realize I actually just don't like him that much anymore. I don't like the person that he became over the course of the book. So when he dies, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. But there's one scene before the battle, and they're all trying to figure out what to do. And I think it's where they're also sending Vin and Eland away.
Mm-hmm.
And Doxa is like, let's just jump ship to another noble faction. And that was his suggestion, which, going back to Final Empire Doxin, he hates the nobles. He would never choose to do that, but he's just gotten to this point in his life where that was his choice, and he was ready to just jump ship because that was what he thought was the best thing to do. And yeah, getting to that scene every time, I'm like, man, I really don't like you anymore.
I mean, does anybody like him, period?
Oh, I liked him in the first book.
Yeah,
I quite liked him in the first book.
I think how I read that, at least, was him not differentiating between the nobility, right? Like, I think it's more that he's saying
the noble's the same as the
noble
other.
Factions serve a purpose that we can use, and why should I care more about like Elend Venture versus any other noble? Because they're like, yes, I'm acknowledging Elend has some good points, but I think he's really disappointed that after everything they did, a noble is still in charge, which is very fair.
There was a conversation that Vin and Elend had right after, I think shortly after Doxin got back, where he and Elend were just like checking in with each other, and obviously we're not getting along. And afterwards, Vin was like, "You really need to give him more of a chance, Elend. You're not giving him a fair shot here. Like, yeah, you're both kind," and it's kind of framed as like they're both not really working on it. But from the sounds of it, it sounded like Elend was trying really hard to be civil when Doxin was kind of not being very nice.
Yeah.
And like, and so I read that and I was like, I don't know. It, like, Elend has a point when he says it's hard to try and like someone when they clearly hate you. Like, he says that, and like, honestly, I'm kind of on his side here. Like, I think he is giving Dox a shot, but Dox isn't really giving him one, and Vin kind of sides with Doxin there, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's more that like Ellen did give him a real shot, and Doxin didn't reciprocate. So like Ellen is like, I did what I could. Like, I'm going to be civil. Like,
I did my part
for the sake of the government, but like,
And I think the difference is Elend feels more emotionally able to give Doxin a shot because he doesn't have baggage with Doxin's people, social class, whereas Doxin does have that baggage, right? So he has less, I think, emotional capacity to reach out to Elend, because like that would be him reaching out to his like abuser, his persecutor, or a symbol of his, even though Elend personally wasn't oppressing Doxin necessarily, he's very much part of that.
Because I think Vin does talk to Doxin about this at one point, and Doxin has a line is like, I can't believe that Elend is a good man. Like, I can't believe that any noble could be a good man, because then like all of the things I did to nobles, like I couldn't be a good man. Like, because it's like, it's easy to like murder a whole bunch of people when you think they're universally bad, but like once you start like, well, this one's good, how many of the people I murdered were also good? Because like he genuinely probably killed a lot of bad people, but it's like he can't just unilaterally apply it to everyone. So I was like, I would have liked more of like that in this book. I'm just like, I want more of like, but there's finite page time so it makes sense that he wasn't as involved.
Yeah, like you can't develop everyone, but the character death scenes though in this book are so good. They're really good. Love the whole battle is just full of great moments.
Well, and Breeze, and I love the scene with Breeze where he's like, "I'm useless. He crawls into a hole and he's like, "I'm useless. I can't even soothe." And then after the fact, you find out that he's like, "Oh no, he was totally soothing us and he was helping us and we kept on fighting." And it's like Breeze thinks himself as useless and unable to soothe, but at the same time, that soldiers are like, "Dude, he's a hero."
Mhm.
I love that. That was one of the scenes that I remember from
PTSD.
Oh,
Yes.
So fun.
Gotcha.
Actually, I was not super impressed by the death scenes in this book.
Oh yeah?
I don't know. Yeah. They weren't bad. I just kind of wanted a little more from them, I guess. They felt like, oh, okay, that happens, and then we're just moving on, and it didn't feel very weighty or impactful. I don't know. But I did really like all of Breeze in the ending and how he acted like that, and later on how he was just clearly not having a good time even when he was out of the direct danger.
I felt like that for Tyndall's death in particular. Like, I never really enjoyed the fact that she's just killed off screen and we then just get the aftermath of it. Like, it just felt a bit hollow to me after she's been built up as a character so much throughout this book.
yeah.
Yeah, that's something like I want to touch on. Is the Sazed Tyndall relationship?
True.
And it's like Tyndall kind of gets fridged because like she needs to die in order for Sazed to have his whole like crisis of faith. And it's like, I can't think of a way around that, but it's like because Tyndall is such a great character. I'm like, did she really have to die?
Yeah.
Probably. Was there a way to do it that isn't quite as blatantly fridging?
Probably.
Particularly because Sazed like has multiple like thoughts about as like, oh, Tyndall's gate has fallen. It's just like it. It's like, but he doesn't go to find her until like way after. I'm just like, really.
Probably the worst one, yeah.
Especially with how impulsive the rest of the characters are about, oh no, the person I love is in trouble. Let's go. So, but at the same time, it is kind of a nice change of pace and a change of character that there is a character who, instead of running off and the second, oh no, the love of my life is in trouble, I must run and save them. He's like, no, duty comes first.
All frozen in ice, literal fridging.
Thank you for watching. You can find us at 17thshard.com for all the news, discussion, theories, and fun you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube. And you can support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.